Good morning, everyone. I'm excited. I'm excited because God continues to honor our connection with communication. I think sometimes we don't really understand the significance of communicating with God. And a lot of people, they'll be like, Michelle, what are you trying to do? You trying to be a preacher? No, 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 no. Number one, you couldn't. I don't even think God Himself could come down here and get me to be a preacher to anybody or to be at anybody's church. No. But I will speak at churches. I will talk, but I would never say that I'm a preacher because that's not my desire. My desire is to release the information that God gives me on a consistent basis. And it's constant no matter what I'm going through or no matter where I am. It's like as soon as I wake up in the morning, there's this vortex of knowledge that just falls, right? And I'm just like, I can't take it. No, stop. So, so, so what I do is I just write and I talk because I got to get it out. I can't keep it in. So today I want to talk about the concept of perseverance and determination. A lot of times I believe that we interrupt the process that God puts us through or the journey that He's taking us through with our own need to connect the dots or to make sense of what's happening or what's going on. And the thing is too, I like to read everything. I like to read a lot of different mediums to find research and documentation on different types of theories and concepts because that's just what drives me, words. But I wanted to address today your environment throughout the process. I did not realize how much of an impact your environment or my environment had on my perception of what God asked me to do. Right? So if God sends me to China, Michelle, go over to China and I want you to cut hair like you cut hair in the United States. I'm like, what? What? Do they take haircuts like that? I don't know. I'm not, I don't know. I've seen some really good haircuts over there, but it's normally the different cultures and different experiences are going to generate friction before education. It's going to create a disruption before it establishes knowledge and wisdom, right? Because if you don't understand something, you're going to be perplexed. That's our natural response. Like for instance, say for instance, you see an object, maybe 100 feet, 200 feet down the road while you're driving, and you constantly focus on that thing and you're just like, what is that? That reaction, that natural reaction to be frustrated with the things we don't understand is what I want to talk about and how your environment impacts your perception throughout the journey that God takes you through. Now, what I have learned this year is something very, very important and very, very significant. I have to learn how to trust what God tells me to do in an environment where they cannot understand me, or in an environment where people cannot perceive what they're looking. They're like, wait a minute, hold on. What is that? I'm frustrated because I don't understand what she's saying. I don't understand why she's saying it. It doesn't matter or it doesn't match what I know or what I think I've learned and have been told, right? So, what is she doing? Whoa, right? So the thing is, Here's the thing. It is not my responsibility to make clear another person's perception of who I am or what I do. That's not my job. That's God's job. So whatever we perceive is the collection of the sum of all of our parts, our experiences, our traumas, our all the things that we've gone through, the joys, the laughter, the parties, the family gatherings. All that creates the definition for what you see in this world. So if you see a person that's different, if you see a person that doesn't match your qualifications, and you're not able to perceive and understand what that thing is, you just got to keep going anyway, right? The reason a lot of people around me don't understand me or they can't interpret what I say is because they haven't gone through the tests I've gone through, the tears, the trauma, the turmoil, the treachery, and far more difficult than anything else, the betrayal, right? No one will ever have the exact same experience. Now, we might have similar experiences, but that's where I believe God interrupted the intention of logic to actually expand his voice through our experiences that we don't understand in our brother or our sister. So what God does is he's like, so I'm going to take this experience, and it's not going to make sense to everybody. A lot of people won't understand it, but some people will. And I need to reach those people through your story, right? That's pretty significant, because I always talk about the old mothers in the church who used to just get up and get it in the testimony. So we thank God for it. Sorry if I sound churchy. That's where I came from. I can't help it. You can take the girl out the church, but you can't take the church out the girl. And them old mothers would get up there and they'd start rocking. And they start, I come in no strength of my own, but it is God's mercy that keeps me going. Now, I didn't know anything about that when I was younger, right? I was like, what is she talking about? But I can feel it. Woo! It was like fire, right? I still feel it. It's amazing. But the thing is that her experiences were a reference point for me when I began to go through things as I got older. And I remember I said, wait a minute. That mother was talking about her trials and tribulations and the turbulence in her life, but she still had joy, right? She still had a smile on her face. And that's the thing that God begins to develop in you through other people's stories over time. Hey, yep, they had a similar experience. They came out and they were okay. So what I want you to do, Michelle, is I want to teach you how to wait in a content disposition. I want to teach you how to wait in a patient disposition. I want to teach you how to wait and have no fear and anxiety. That's what that's for, right? So when we start to develop that thirst and that yearning to feed our faith, because that's what that does. It feeds our faith, our memories, the things we ingest on a daily basis. And this is why your environment has a critical impact, or it could have a good impact on your journey. If you're in an environment where you tell people and you expose your vulnerability to people who never give what you give, who don't reciprocate what you give, who don't give you the support that you need, and you're constantly trying to prove to them, hey, God told me to do this. Can't you see it? Because they're the closest ones to you, but they're the ones with the spirit of Judas. The ones that are closest to you won't understand the power that's in your life because they have not experienced what you've experienced. So your story, you're trying to evoke the same thing that old mother used to do when she said, I come in no strength. That means that mother didn't have no strength at all, but she made it anyway to the house of God, right? So what I'm doing and what we're doing throughout our journey is we're sharing our experiences and being vulnerable to people that have no interest in the good for us. They have no interest in our well-being. They have no interest in reciprocating the things that you've given them. So then God's like, So there becomes a blockage, because then you start to feed fear when you stay around those types of people that don't have your best interest at heart. right? Well, maybe God didn't tell me. Well, maybe God said I shouldn't. Well, maybe God said this or that, because you're being vulnerable and open in a space that is not supportive. You got to get out. You got to detach. You got to go through your journey and protect your environment. A lot of times I think in the Black community especially, we're always taught, well, you gotta forgive, you gotta do this, you can't do that, you can't hold a grudge. No. And those are the types of things that are put in place to actually keep folks from actually confronting situations and becoming better people. So just like, I was told, like I did in my last video, this guy was like, oh, I'm just worried about your church hurt. No, I don't have church hurt. This is what I have. I have an experience that was not discussed with the person because they refused to talk about it. And yes, I have sent emails like, hey, let's have a conversation. I'm reaching out, but everybody wants to label something and not actually deal with the problem. Right? That's what a lot of church folk do. They want to blame an event and say, oh, that's just got to be not the will of God. That's not what that person is supposed to do. And then when that starts to happen, something goes on. People become the voice that you follow instead of the voice of God. Well, if I had to listen to that person and if I had to said, well, wait a minute. Do I have church hurt? No, I don't. Know who you are. Know your experiences. Know for a fact. Talk to a therapist. Not just a therapist will help, right? But the thing is that you've got to identify where you are, and that is the most intimidating thing that any person could ever be, is sure of themselves in an environment that only seeks to demean you so that they can have control over you. Right? So throughout the journey, I started to notice something. When I start cutting all of the negative energy, the negative dominion that was trying to take over my life, my house, my family, I had to rebuke every opposing spirit. And sometimes you just gotta go ham, right? You just gotta get on your knees and you gotta say, God, I know you hear me. I know you see me. I know what you told me to do. God, I need you to move. And then God's like, okay, let me show you what to do. And then some people are still sitting there waiting on God with no action. Faith without works is dead. Your situation becomes dead. You die. And the promises of God that are beyond this actual struggle die as well. You've got to push to make sure that the baby that's coming out, because this process is like birth, that the child that's coming out has the best doctor, the best anesthesia coming to you, the best anesthesiologist, the best bed. It's got to have the best everything, the best nurses, because you've got to protect that baby, that promise and that purpose. And it's crazy because I'm getting pumped, right? I got all this opposition around me. I got all these things going for me. I'm just like, oh, for real? That's coming too. Wait a minute. Oh my God. No. When I became overwhelmed, I noticed something very specific. I was not in a position or posture of faith because I focused on what was happening to me instead of what God told me to do, right? If he says, Michelle, I need you to go here, even if I can't understand what's happening or what's coming or what I'm driving by, even though I can't perceive what I am supposed to do next because I got to wait on the voice of God, what happens is I stop and try to figure out what those things are, what those things mean. And then I counter it with the thing that God told me to do. Because it is so much easier for us to sit here and become complacent and quit and say, well, I guess that's just not what the Lord wanted me to do in this season. Yes, it is. Get up and stop being lazy and fight and push and make sure that you prepare a place for that purpose. God is not mocked concerning, and he will perfect those things concerning me, right? So when I start to see those things and try to perceive what's going on around me, I say this prayer out loud. God, my ways are not your ways. My thoughts are not your thoughts. You will perfect those things concerning me. So what started to happen is those things that I did not understand and could not perceive started to disappear because I used that prayer as a prescription for the anxiety, for the fear, for the complacency, for the everything that came to deter me from my purpose. It's just like anything else. If you want to lose weight, stop eating fat. If you want to stop smoking, then get you some patches. If you want to get over a breakup, go get some therapy. You cannot usher in the promises of God into your life without work. And therefore, when I prosper in the things that I accomplish, each success becomes the only validation that's necessary. Because folks around you that are close to you, they're going to wonder, I'm going to see how long it's going to take her to fail. Because the thing is they're uncomfortable with the you that you're becoming because it doesn't match the you that they think you should be. Right? In any instance, they're uncomfortable with the things outside of the circle that they haven't decided to take a chance on. And they want to wait to see you fail. If you get that inclination from anybody around you, leave them. Go in the opposite direction. Wish them well. Because let me tell you what you're going to do. You're going to sit there and try to prove the purpose of God to someone who doesn't even understand who you really are and what is really inside of you. So you've got to understand to keep your thoughts to yourself. Keep the things that God has given you to yourself. Because if you give that vulnerability to the wrong people, the purpose, that dream, that vision will die. My goodness. So as long as my posture before God is pure openness, pure, God, show me if I'm doing something wrong. God, and I will believe you. That's the thing, right? So when we ask God something, he answers us. Sometimes our faith isn't big enough to believe and receive the answer that God gives us. So you got to ask God, Lord, prepare my heart to be faith. God, full of faith. God, Lord, prepare my perception to be fed with faith. God, prepare my heart to be full of faith, because without faith, it is impossible to please you. So as long as we got that openness, that desire to just deal with the rawness of ourselves. God told me one time, he's like, Michelle, you see, sometimes you don't listen. And I'm like, I thought I did. He said, no. He said, when you get afraid, Michelle, you deny me obedience. And I'm just like, well, God. And I actually said this to a preacher. I had a bishop actually. I had this conversation because it bothered me. I don't want God to think that about me. It bothered me. And he was like, Michelle, he said, sometimes we can be so overcome with what we have in front of us and what we see that we forget the position that God has in our hearts, because we allow that fear to be over God. So the thing is, we want to keep ourselves safe. We want to hide ourselves from the world. We want to make sure that we don't put ourselves out there to be embarrassed. It's ego. It's not faith. It's ego. When you take the situation in front of you and you define it in opposition to what God told you to do. He's not going to always tell you the outcome. He just needs you to go. And that's the thing. So openness to hearing with faith to believe God is before me. It gives me the motivation to never quit. If I start initially and I say, hey, God said I need to do this, so I'm going to do it. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't got no money. I don't got no expertise. I don't have no resources, but I know God told me to do this. So I know the voice of God, and I just want to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, because so many times I've done what I was not supposed to do, and I understand the response, the natural response for that. That's a lesson. I'm tired of lessons. Listen, I'm just going to do what God said do. So with that in the forefront of my mind, whatever comes to me, right, it gives me a gladiator faith. It makes me feel 10 feet tall. So it doesn't matter what comes my way. It doesn't matter what's in front of me. If God before me, if God told me to do it, if God asked me to sacrifice certain things, he will perfect those things concerning me. Failure is the content that will create ideas that will eventually evolve into perfection, into the perfection of process. So throughout that journey, you're going to make a lot of mistakes because without money, without resources, God is going to train your perception to never quit, because when you accomplish one thing along the journey, then you got a little stronger faith, and then you accomplish another thing, then your faith increases some more. So now faith in doing something and taking action on the things God has asked you to do creates the perfection of the process. That's the reward. The perfection of the process is where we will have our evidence that following the voice of God is actually something that will reward us for the next experience. It's amazing. It's just amazing because I was so free, and God was like, Michelle, why do you care what people are interpreting or perceiving you as? Because I'm like, Lord, I just don't want people to think I'm a bad person, because I'm not. And God, I don't want folk to think that I mean them any ill will, because I don't. And I just don't. But you told me to do this, and it's making me uncomfortable, God. And he's just like, why? If I told you to do it, then why are you worried about the way people are perceiving you? He said, Michelle, that's your ego too. And I was silent for like a week. Me and God didn't talk for like maybe five seconds, but but he did. That's what he does. He sits truth on my spirit, and it's heavy. And until I can lift it up, I keep trying. And that truth changes me because it develops strength. It develops character, and it develops an anointing that no one can deny. I don't care what nobody say. I know that I am anointed to do this. You can't tell me nothing different because of the fruit that it's bearing. But it was scary in the beginning. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going on YouTube. Nobody wants to listen to me. Nobody cares. Seriously, that's but one time, and this is the truth. Stephanie and I sat down. We lived in an apartment a few years ago, and God had told me, he was like, you need to start a YouTube channel. I'm just like, no. See, that's exactly what that pastor was talking about. I exalted my fear over what God asked me to do. So eventually, when we don't listen to God and we don't hear God, God sends a miracle or a prophet most of the time. So this was a miracle. Stephanie and I were sitting down at the table, and my television, it's a smart TV. There were no remote controls near. My television popped on, and it was YouTube. It didn't go straight to cable, which it was put together to do. It went straight to YouTube because you got to go outside of the cable to get into the apps. And I was just like, okay, what can you do after that? God's like, nope, you're going to do it. I'm tickled by that. I'm so sorry. But that's just what God does when he wants you to actually accomplish something that you don't think you can. And all of this, just so that God can expand you in love, and expand you in wisdom, and expand you in knowledge and experience. It's an amazing thing to go through with God, to walk through life with a God that talks to me. God can talk to anybody. He can choose, and he does. God can talk to preachers. God can talk to gurus, which I listen to gurus all the time. They're amazing and full of God. And God can talk to your niece, your nephew, your friend. But The thing is that when he talks to me personally, when he talks to my experience personally, I become strong in areas that I didn't even know I could be strong in. And the thing is God is like, hey, just need you to take one step at a time. And eventually I'll realize that I don't need his help to take those steps anymore because I'm taking them on my own. Because the truth that God pressed into my spirit is causing me to be strong enough to make it through this journey. Woo! I could talk about this all day because I am living it, because I am going through it, because I am experiencing it. And for God to meet my need, to meet the need of understanding and to perceive something after he's taking me through it. Sometimes God won't reveal why he had you to go through a certain thing until years later. And that's where faith is germinated. That's where it's built, in the waiting period where you trust God. Yep, that's fine. Oh, all right, Jesus. All right. But I just wanted to leave you guys with a song. And that's another thing God has been telling me. He said, Michelle, I need you to worship on your YouTube. And I'm just like, okay, God. But and I'm pretty, I don't like being out in front. I really don't. So I don't understand why this is happening. But I will. And while I was going through these words and reading what God was giving me, I turned on YouTube and I heard a song I never heard before. And Benita Washington was singing it. I love Benita Washington. Listen, whew, that woman takes me in. It don't even matter where I could be on the other side of the planet. I could be underneath the ground. That woman will pull your spirit up and take it to the feet of God in seconds. And I really appreciate that, because not every worship leader can do that. But here it goes. I will exalt thee. I will exalt thee. I will exalt thee. You are my God. I will exalt thee. No matter what it feels like, I will exalt thee. I will exalt thee. You are my God, my hiding place, my safe refuge, my treasure, Lord, you are my friend and King, anointed one, most holy one. I will exalt thee. Yeah. I will exalt thee. Yeah. I will exalt thee. You